this strip of land, hazos, this haruga, the land, v'kama hi yafa achshav, and how much it's worth right now. V'hashta, right, we evaluate how much it was before, the whole thing, how much it was before, and then the whole thing, how much it's worth right now. V'hashta, now, lo mishalim kulu damei. He does not pay all the money. Demei, because shilokeach beisa, because you take you take in parentheses the worth, right? You take the worth of beisa, the beisa. You take the worth of the beisa kishehi bitvu asa, that as if it were with grain, right? Eino mizalzul. Demei should look at the should look at we saw she was ain't no mizazel bab she realized say the aruga. Wait, no. Demei, why do we do this? Because shilokech beisah kishi bitzvasa, that when you take shilokech, that you take beisah, the value of the beisah kishihit bitzvasa, that it's with grain. This literally means grain, but if it was apples, then it would mean apples. Eino mizalzul, that when you do that, eino mizalzul, it does not change, it does not degrade, or lessen, it bishvil hefset aruga, because of the hesed, because of the loss of the land, achas, of one land, right? When you take the value of the base sub as a whole, it would not degrade the worth because of hefsid aruga achas, because of one strip of land, because of the loss of one strip of land. Meaning, just because of the animal ate one thing, if you evaluate with the whole saw, it will not change the value. Ki'im davar muat, except for a small amount, meaning it will change it much less. If you do with the whole field, instead of just the strip of land, it will be much less. And that's what we do. And if you ask why, it seems unfair. Why do we do this? Because of the pasuk, that you evaluate and that you consumed in a different field. Alright, the next Rashi is, so once again, if you want the full explanation, it's in the other video, so go watch that if you need to. The next thing is Rabbi Shimon. So we'll go back into the thing. Right, Rabbi Shimon says, if you ate full fruit, you pay full fruit. Now, what does full fruit mean, and what is his opinion? It doesn't make sense. Right now, it seems like it doesn't make sense. Rabbi Shimon says, if you ate peiros gemurim, shekvar bishlu kol tzarchan, that they already bishlu, they already literally means cooked, it means ripened, kol tzarchan, all their need. So what does that mean? So in the case before, I explained that, right, it's not the same eating off the land or eating off barrels, right? If the apples were, if there was a barrel full of apples, right, the damage would be the worth of the apples, how much it's worth in the market. But if it was eaten off the land, then the damage would be evaluated off the land. But what Rabbi Shimon is coming to teach us is that, or according to him, right, he goes against the Tanna Kama. The Tanna Kama says any time that the apples are on the ground, you pay what's on the ground. If they're in the barrel, you pay what's in the barrel. But Rabbi Shimon argues. He says if you ate peiros gemurim, meaning full ripened fruits, according to Rashi, full ripened fruits, meaning even if it was on the thing, on the ground, it was still attached to the tree, or the tomatoes were still attached to the ground, right? Even though they were still attached to the ground, if they're fully ripened, you pay what it's worth to in the market, because they're fully ripened. So you pay for fully ripened fruit. That's what Rabbi Shimon's opinion is. So once again, one more time in Rashi, that they already ripened, called tzarchan all their need, meaning achla peres gemurim, right? Achla peres gemurim, mishlames peres gemurim. You pay for full ripened fruit. If you ate full ripened, if it ate full ripened fruit, then you pay for full ripened fruit. You pay what it's worth in the market. All right. The next Rashi is on Mishalemes, right? Mishalemes peres gemurim. So what's Mishalemes? Mishalemes is kol hahezik, all the hezek, right? Mishalemes kol hahezik. You pay the whole hezek. Veheicha, and when sheminon agav sadeh, and when do we pay for the agav, for the land, or agav is like the strip of land of the field. And when do we evaluate the field? Meaning, right, we explained that if you ate peres gemurim, you pay for peres gemurim. But so according to Rabbi Shimon, when do you do the shamim beisa be'osadeh? Right? When in what case would you evaluate the field instead of the marketplace? In what case would you evaluate for field? Heicha, when the adayin, when it hadn't yet the adayin that it hadn't yet the adayin nigmru, that it hadn't yet nigmru finished. The adayin lo nigmru, that it yet lo nigmru hadn't finished, meaning that it hadn't yet finished what? Finished ripening, right? When in the case that an animal is attached to the ground and it hasn't finished ripening, then you evaluate how much it's worth in the field before it's right. The whole explanation of this Rashi above, right? How much it was worth before and how much it's worth now. So the last part of the recording will be Nivritza B'Layla, and then I have one explanation to do that we did outside of how we know, right? Or I'll actually do that in a separate video I'll record later. Because I'll record it with the Gemara. So right now it's just Rashi and Tosfos. So Nivritza B'Layla, if it broke out at night, so let's remind ourselves what the case was. Nivritza B'Layla, if it broke out at night, Potter, right? So we don't need the Shabbat listen. So our point is that if Nivritza B'Layla, Potter. If it broke out at night, he's Potter. So we have two things here that are weird. First of all, in all other cases, it says V'yatza v'zika. Why over here it's coming to say Nifritza B'Layla? So that's one problem that we have. And the second case is pretty obvious. Why B'Layla? So what? In the day it's Chayiv? What's the case here? So Tosfos comes to explain. So our two questions once again are why Nifritza and why B'Layla? So Nivritza B'Layla, Afal Pi. So when it says Afal Pi, it's going to tell us our problem. Our problem is the Tana Nal B'Fanei Kru'ui, that we taught that Nal B'Fanei Kru'ui is Pater. Even so, we had already taught that Nal B'Fanei Kru'ui is Pater. So we know that he did not lock it correct, and we know, or let's say, I'm going to go outside of the Tosfos for a second. We know that if lo nal b'fanei kru'ui v'yatza v'zika, it's chayiv. So obviously, we know that it can't be that because we said that the end result is putter. So we can't. Obviously, he locked it properly. So we know it's a case that v'nal b'fanei kru'ui and it's putter. Right? We know it's a case of a nal before. So the Tana, and so Avapi, meaning the problem is the Tana, we taught that nal b'fanei kru'ui pater, that if you lock it properly, it's pater. At tzarich limasni nifritza b'layla. We needed to teach it's tarich. We needed lemisni to teach nifritza b'layla, that it broke out at night. So why do we have? Meaning his question is, why do we have to teach that? and then nifritza b'layla pater. So why do we have to teach that it's nifritza b'layla pater? Meaning, and he's going to answer our questions of why nifritza and why b'layla. So nifritza b'layla pater, okay. Kidayik, like we inferenced, like we made an inference in beperek kama in the first perek, that if habayom that but if it's in the day, right? Habayom, but if it's in the day, right? Because we said if it's about laila pater, right? But habayom, but if it's in the day, chayev is chayev. So dikala, so that was our so that's an inference. So it's still not an answer why it says balayla, but we're making that we made that diok in the Gemara earlier, and now we're going to explain what's the difference. Like, why is there a different halacha between nifritza balayla and nifritza b'yoyim? But first he's going to explain what nifritza is. Nifritza, right, broke out. So dikala, that there was a noise. Islay, there was to him, meaning there was a noise to him. Lemilsa, a thing, right? There was a noise. Dikala islay lemilsa. There, something made a noise, and for him, meaning islay, there was dikala islay lemilsa, and there was a noise, right? There was islay, there was to him a noise from a thing, limilsa, from a thing, right? Umastama, and we assume that yada shenifritza, that he knows that it broke out. So that's our explanation. That's our first answer of difference between. So that it's very subtle. His answer, you can barely tell that's an answer. Right now, it seems like all he's answering is that it's what nifritza is. So obviously, we know that he explains what nifritza is. Nifritza is they call it that there was a noise, right? So that there was a noise and that he heard it, right? Our first answer is that he heard it, right? There was for sure there was a noise. They call it for sure there was a noise. But our first answer is that mastama yada shenifritza, that he knew that it broke out, right? Meaning. And that was saying habayom chayev dekala, because there was a noise. So by yom we assume that he knew. Meaning our first answer is that if by night we assume that he did not know. So what does that mean implicitly? That what does it mean that in the night he didn't know? That he was sleeping. You don't know that it broke out if you were sleeping and you didn't hear the noise. So, but in the day, since you're not sleeping and you know that it broke out, then you're going to be chayiv. Inami, if also balayla, if it was in the night. So this is a second answer. Inami, if also a second answer. Alternatively, balayla filu nodalo, even if he knew, afilu even noda, it was known low to him. Shenivritza, that it broke out, viyatzasa, and it went out. Habehema, the behema went out. Ein lo, there is not to him, meaning he does not have the obligation. Litroach, to make an effort. Yoser midai, like an additional effort. Lechazer, to return it. Lechazer achareh, to run after it, right? Lechazer literally means return, but in this case it's like to run after achareh it, after it. Ba'afela, in the darkness. Okay, he has no chiyuv to run after it in the darkness. So what's his second answer implicitly? So he does not spell it out for us. We have to think a little. So he's saying that he does not have the obligation to do out, even afilu nodalo. So what's the key word here is? The key word here is be'afela, in the darkness. He does not have to run after it in the darkness. But if it was in the day, habayom chayev. it would be to him. Ain lo here because it's balayla, but if it would be it would be to him to make an effort. Meaning bayom is chayiv because there's no affinity, there's no darkness. But in the day, in the night, there is darkness, so he's pater, right? Because he can't see it, so he can't run after it. There's no chiyuv to run after it when it's dark. But if it's not dark, then there is chiyuv. So what would be nafkamina, a practical difference between the two cases, right? What would it be meaning? The point of a nafkamina is to ask ourselves, why is there two answers? Meaning, why would there be two answers? Why can't he just leave us as one? So there has to be some difference in the two answers. That's why he had to make both to include all cases. So what case would be, in one case it would be chayiv and the other one pater. So let's say it was a case, like it was daytime all the time, like in the North Pole, it's always daytime for some of the year. Right? In the case, so for our second answer, be'afela in the darkness. So for our second answer, even if he's sleeping, but if it's be'afela, there's no darkness. Be'afela is in the darkness. But since there's no darkness, he would always be chayiv to get his animal because he could see it easily. But in the case of, in the first answer, in the first answer that we assume that he knew, right? Meaning that he's if he's sleeping, right? Let's say he goes to sleep and it's still light outside because there it's always light. In the second answer, as I said, he would be chayiv because it will be a light outside. But in the first answer, right, when we said that it was because he didn't know because he was sleeping. So if he's sleeping, even if it's light outside, if he's sleeping, then he's not chayiv. He's pater from chasing after the animal, even if it's light outside, according to the first answer. And once again, the second answer, because if it's light outside, he would be chayiv. So that's the end of the Tosfos, and there was something I had to explain outside, but I'll explain outside with the Gemara in a separate video that I'll record later.